So we're going to kick off our Parkour 1 Part 1 skill chart with the vault skills. For your students, you want to start them off on the purple and black vault box that we have. Place that on the ground for them to use, and then place an 8-inch mat on the opposite side where they're going to be landing, so that if they have any tumbles or falls, they're going to be just fine. Especially in the Parkour 1 classes, you're probably going to have a lot of younger and smaller students. So if they need a little lift to get up to the vault box, that's absolutely fine. What you'll want to do is take a panel mat and just place that on one side, the side that they're taking off from, so they can use that as a sort of step stool for their vaults. There's nothing wrong with that as long as they understand the principle of the vault and they are able to accomplish that. So the very first vault skill that we're going to be teaching our students in our parkour classes is going to be the safety vault. Now the safety vault involves putting one hand on the vault box and the opposite foot on the vault box. You're going to take the foot that's on the ground and thread it through the gap that is made between that hand and foot until it reaches the other side of the vault box. From there, you're going to land one foot at a time so that you can take off in a running start, and then you will have completed a safety vault. Now what's great about the safety vault, and one of the reasons why we teach it first, is because you can do all of the steps of the safety vault without having to fully commit yourself to any part of the trick. What that means is I can start the process of the safety vault and stop at any point and go back or continue forward until I'm done with the safety vault, and I can do that as fast or as slowly as I want or need to. So there really isn't any big risk of injury with this vault, and that's one of the biggest reasons why we teach it first. So the practical application for this vault is that it's basically going to be a staple for some of the other vaults that we use, and it's going to teach just overall bodily coordination for your students. Here are some key points to keep in mind when coaching a safety vault. Firstly, you're going to want to make sure that when your students are doing their safety vault, that they're properly leaning over the hand that's placed on the vault box. It's very common to get in the habit of standing straight up with the safety vault, but what that's going to do is actually make it harder to get that foot threaded through the gap that you've created, and it's also just going to make it not as quick to get back on the ground since you're more likely to stand upright. Instead, your athlete should be placing their weight more over the hand that is placed on the vault box. That way it's going to make it easier for them to thread their foot through that gap, and as soon as it touches the ground, they're going to be able to take off in a nice running position. Another thing to look out for is to make sure that they're facing completely forwards when they complete their safety vault. It's very common for the students to want to start turning to the side when they complete their safety vault, but just keep it in mind that all of these vaults are going to be used to get over the obstacle as fast as possible and to take off in a running start. So we want to make sure that we're landing facing the direction that we're going. And finally, another common mistake that students have when doing the safety vault is landing both feet at the same time. You really want to make sure that when you're sticking that foot through the needle, that you're placing that foot down so that you can land in a split step motion, which is going to allow you to run right off of the landing. There aren't that many drills that are necessary from my experience. That being said, just make sure you keep an eye out on their technique so that they're practicing the right technique, and they should be good to go from there. So now we're going to take a look at our speed vault. Now the speed vault is technically a little less complicated than the safety vault, but it does require more commitment and more speed in order to accomplish. Now with the speed vault, the student is going to be running directly at the vault box, take off with one foot, and place one hand on the vault box. They're going to shift their body weight sideways and then use that hand that's placed to push them upright again so that they can land on the opposite side in a running start. It's very important to note that with the speed vault, it's not a swinging motion. Instead, what you're going to be looking for is shifting your body sideways with the jump and then using the hand to straighten yourself back up at the other side. So once that hand is placed, it's simply going to stiff arm the vault box so it can push us straight up again, and then we can land in that split step motion so that we can run out of the vault. A good drill for the speed vault is to have them actually take off of the corner of the vault box. That way they're not required to get their legs over it. It's not going to clip or anything. They'll just go right over the side just like this. And what you want to do is make sure they're practicing the good technique that way, and then slowly start to add blocks of height next to the vault box so that they actually have to force their legs over top of the blocks that you're stacking. Eventually you'll get up till it's around the height of the vault box, and at that point you should have them start trying it on the vault box by itself. Just like with the safety vault, a very common issue with the speed vault is landing not facing forward. So really make sure that when they're shifting their legs over, that their chest and their eyes, everything is looking at the direction they're going to. One of the issues that actually causes that for the speed vault is when they take off for the vault, they try to put one leg over first and they end up pivoting kind of like this, almost like a one-handed turn vault. You want to make sure that when they're taking off, they're bringing their legs together and sideways instead of turning. Remember, the axis we're moving on is on this right here. We're not turning like this. Now, with the speed vault, you could take off with the outside or inside foot and it would still theoretically work, but in order to combat that turn vault motion, you're gonna wanna have them take off of their outside foot. That way, it's gonna force their inside foot, or in this case, the foot that's closest to my hand, around the vault box like this, and that's gonna prohibit me from getting the left leg over first and turning like that. It's gonna kind of force me to get in the proper technique for the speed vault. So that's what you wanna look out for, and that's a good tip to keep them from doing that turn vault. All right, so our next vault skill is actually technically not going to be a full vault, but it is going to be a prerequisite to get into higher level vaults. So that is going to be our cheetah run. What you're going to do with the cheetah run is get in a very squatted position. You're going to place your hands in front of you and you're going to jump your feet in between your hands. As you get more comfortable with this, you'll be able to utilize it in your Kong vaults and in a couple of other type of movements as well. There's not going to be too many prerequisites for this skill because it is in itself more of a prerequisite, but if your students are having a hard time understanding it, then have them place their hands on something like a French fry or any other marker where they can place both hands, and then tell them they have to get both feet in between their hands without moving their hands off of that French fry. Really have them practice getting their butt high up in the air instead of trying to keep their chest upright, because that's going to be helpful when they start using this skill for their Kong vaults. And our final vault skill that's going to be listed on the part 1 of the Parkour 1 skill chart is going to be our squat on. Now, the squat on is going to be very similar to the squat on in gymnastics. So the way we do a squat on is we're going to place both hands on the vault box. We're going to push it down with those hands as we jump, and we're going to try to get both of our feet in between our hands, landing on top of the vault box. This skill is very important for teaching more advanced skills such as the Kong vault, which we'll get into a little bit later, but it's also just a useful skill on its own when you're traversing different obstacles. A good practice for this one is, especially when using the soft vault box, is placing their hands on the middle and just trying to get their knees up to the ledge, just like this. It's one of the only times we'll say in parkour that it's okay to have your knees on anything that you're climbing up. But in this situation, we're just using it as practice. Once they get comfortable with that, then they can start jumping up to their feet. Honestly, a good prerequisite for this skill is just to do it on a lower surface. So start on a panel mat, start on a beam, start on anything that's going to be a little bit smaller for them, and that's just a good way to start practicing this. The biggest thing to keep in mind with the technique of this skill is to make sure that they're getting their butts up in the air into a nice hollow position to get their feet up. If they're trying to approach this skill with their chest upright like this, then it's going to lead to them actually having a harder time getting their feet up here, and it's also going to keep their body weight a little bit further back. So we don't want that. We want to make sure that when they're placing their hands up on it, that they can get into this hollow position right here, and they can get their butt up into the air when they're doing it. Another great prerequisite for this skill is to simply have them do donkey kicks or just tucked donkey kicks where they don't actually do the kicking motion. They just stay in a tuck, almost like they're trying to get up into a handstand with a tucked position, and then they'll just fall back down. That's going to be the essential part to the squat on.